from the oldest city in the USA, St. Augustine tonight, with our guest,
Cesar Diaz, Tony Vecchio, Paul Sirmons, and musical guest Beau The Burners.
With your host, Jorge Rivera.
I'm losing my voice a little bit. The doctor gave me some good stuff, just a little throat thing. But I'm back. It's summer. Things are looking good. I mean, this is like having malaria. I mean, you're freezing, you're hot, you're freezing. I want to thank the Lincolnville Museum and Cultural Center to start out. The St. John's Cultural Council. Ancient City Brew. After a couple of beers, those jokes get funnier. Yeah. We also want to thank Vecchio Vision, who you see the world in a whole different way. It's called Art and Life in 3D. You'll know more of it as the months come by. And Flowers by Shirley. Look at that. Place smells like a flower shop. Well, you know, this week, I had a very busy week. I don't like my weeks to be busy because I'm editing. But I went to the Lenny Foster exhibition. He'll be here to tell us a little bit about that. He's our slider for tonight. It leaves an impact. It's one of those exhibitions where you leave thinking, and I think we need more of those. Also, I went to the Count Basie concert. Fort Mose. If you were here for last show, you saw that Philip McDaniel was, a big supporter of that. I tell you, that was unbelievable. I haven't been to a concert like that in a long, long time. I'm going to go see Gregory Porter on Thursday. He should be amazing. Also, they got Trombone Shorty. That place was packed. It was just magnificent. I don't know if you saw the storms in Europe. Oh, my Lord. England recorded the highest gust of winds ever recorded in their history. It just tore Germany, England, Ireland. Lots of dead people, sadly. The winds just ripped houses. Cranes fell over construction site. It was so apocalyptic what I was watching. My son lives in France, as you know. Some of you know my son. He's 15 years old. He was saying the winds were really, really strong, but Alsace, where he lives, that's German Franco, they did okay. Their damages were very little. So keep them in your prayers. Keep these people in your mind. Also, this British lady was in Spain, and she lost her dentures. So they found her dentures, sent it back. She opened the envelope. There was a big smile in her envelope. And it was her dentures. But she got them 11 years after she lost them. So I'm a philosopher. So I lay in bed and I think either Spain has the slowest postal service in the world, or they have the most aggressive, incredible lost and found department. For 11 years, they went hunting for these dentures. They probably found them in some old lady's mouth, pulled them out, washed them. But could you imagine the resilience of 11 years looking for these dentures? So I thought that was incredible. Idaho was in the news. Idaho just came out with a limited edition perfume that's called French Fry. And it's a little bottle like that. You spray it and you smell like French fries. I mean, come on. If you want to be romantic, you'd call it pomme de terre at least, right? But no, they call it French fry. I thought potato chip would have been more romantic. But it's very expensive. It's $1.87. The bottle's very small. So much for our brothers in Idaho. Air Asia, flying out of Malaysia, had to return the plane because there was a giant snake in the plane. They made a movie called Snakes on the Plane. It was a very stupid movie, but this I thought was funny. Now, I was reading stories about that, and there are people in these countries where snakes are popular, where their luggage has come down the luggage claim with a giant boa wrapped around it, you know? So really scary, but they had to turn the plane back and find the snake and then move on. Another thing, there's a giant freighter that has about almost 4,000 Volkswagens on it, 1,200 Porsches, several Lamborghinis and Audis, and it's burning, and the crew is pulled out. So get your metal detector. You might be driving a Porsche home. You never know. So, also Florida. Florida's always in the news, and there was this kid in Florida. He was born in Montreal. He plays, I believe, basketball in Bradenton, Florida. He's 7 feet 5 inches tall. He's 15 years old. His name is Oliver Roux, but he's French. He's from French Canada. I thought that was amazing. And the last amazing piece of news is a kid named Rihan Surani. Let's give him a hand. He started yoga when he was 4 years old. Now he's 9 years old, and he's a certified instructor. He lives in Dubai. He gives lessons, and he has a beautiful meditation pose. But we're not going to meditate. I'm going to leave you with Beau and the Burners tonight.
Cooking with gas. But before we go on a little intermission to fix this whole thing, I have a little surprise. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. And Danny's always been a big supporter of the show. And he got hooked on season 3. And in season 4, he was a big reason why we had a season 4. Him and other people like Rod Morris and Bernard Rivell, but he was the engine behind it. He comes to every show, and some of the people that are working here were working in that show, and he felt they needed some incentive to say thank you. And I thank Danny for his kindness. And it's 2 nice jackets, one for Maria Cabrera. We'll give you a big kiss later. And another one for Mike Konopaki, who's working probably in the back. Mike will not give you a big kiss after the show. But I want to thank Danny, and lots of love, good friend, and we're going to have a little intermission while we fix this, and we start with interview number 1.
I'm feeling a change. It's blowing this way like a new hurricane. And it's growing, I'm feeling a change. I say hello.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with one of my favorite people, Cesar Diaz. And as you know, Cesar Diaz is a co-founder, owner, operator of Oddbirds. Oh, look, you hear that? Did you hear that? Give me 1 second here to, all right. That's all right. And yes, and Mr. Cesar is all about the cocktail, my friends. All about the perfection of the cocktail. Tell us a little bit, you came originally from Venezuela.
Yes.
You've been in the country over 20 years now.
Yep.
And when you came, you started from the bottom up, my brother. You started washing dishes, and look at you now. That is the American dream right there. Look at you now. So tell us a little bit about your journey there. When you started, you came into Orlando.
I came to Orlando, and my first job, I remember, was a busser.
Busser.
Yeah. The funny part that day, the dishwasher didn't show up, so they had to put me in the dish pit, which was kind of cool for me. So I was, 20-year-old, and trying to figure it out things out, and it was very fun. And then I did it with the same passion that I still do in cocktails today,
Right,
and run operations. But what I fell in love with was with the hospitality industry, And then
Now, you have a degree from the university back in Venezuela, industrial engineering? Is that
yes,
it?
yeah. I didn't finish, because I just decided to come to the States. But it's what I went. It was my background. It's what I went
Right.
through,
Okay.
Because Venezuela is huge in oil, in the oil
Right.
industry. By then was big,
Right.
so I want to do something in the same field. And now doing something totally different.
Yes, I think something marvelous. So then you moved up in the chain, and you went from busser, you went then to what, catering?
Yeah, I did a lot. Orlando's huge in banquet, but so it was the big conventions, or Orange County Convention Center, and then it's a big hospitality player there. It's called Mr. Harris Rosen. So I worked for the company Rosen Hotels and Resort for a little bit over 7 years.
Wow.
And he's a big supporter and contributor of the development of the hospitality industry in Orlando. He donated the land for the hospitality school, UCF.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And then I fell in love with all the part of food and beverage.
Okay.
So I chose the beverage side of those two.
All right, and so how did you get into bartending?
Bartending I started because I used to be a room service in one of the Rosen hotels by then. And then I used to pick up all the drinks from the bar to bring it to the rooms, And I see the bartenders doing all these fascinating cocktails and entertaining people and, and be pretty much the star of the night, I see the bar as a stage. So for me, it was very intriguing. I think it was, this is what I'm going to do really, And then I start, become like an employee of the month.
Employee of the month, there's
Yeah.
your picture.
And then they asked me, what you want to do? I want to train as a bartender. They give me the opportunity. By then it was very difficult becoming a bartender because you got 14 and 17 years seniority before you. So you need to kill someone or let it die. Otherwise, you are a bar back forever. So I was lucky just to move on and then be able to bartend. And I make this as a career. I started traveling, studying. I started do a lot of consultings for another brands, liquor brands, and I started in the business. And I started opening places for other people. I was able to find one of the most ambitious projects that was the ice plant.
Right.
I found out about it through my good friend Zach Lynch.
Okay.
That worked in this big project, bar, distillery, and all that.
That's another wonderful place for a cocktail.
Amazing. And then I fall in love with the project. I said, let's see what it's all about. And then we see, by then San Augustine wasn't big on cocktails or things like that, And there was it's where the movement started that we have today at San Augustine in one of the top places on the cocktail scene in Florida.
And it's to go back to the roots of the cocktail. Back to, because a lot of cocktails now, I don't know. I mean, you go to Ice Plant, for instance, and you see even the ice is special for your cocktail. You know
The good thing about the ice plant is that we're able to do everything from scratch, to create our own ice, our own syrup for homemade cola, homemade tonic, and then pretty much go back to the real or the true of classic
the
cocktails.
origins of cocktails.
Original
Yes.
cocktails, you know. I'm talking about pre-prohibition, you know, and then talking pretty much about rescuing a little bit about what was the classics, you know.
Right.
The 80s and 90s was really bad for the industry in certain way because it's when all the artificial flavors colors
flavored
came to
vodka,
play.
flavored this.
And then it started a movement 6-7 years ago about go back and rescue classic cocktails, and it's a strong movement.
And what is a classic cocktail?
We're talking about classic cocktail. Let's talk about, we can talk about pre-prohibition or post-prohibition cocktails. By then, cocktails was pretty much sugar, bitter, and booze.
And
you know,
booze.
like old-fashioned.
Okay, an
For
old-fashioned.
instance, yeah. And
a
then
Manhattan.
Manhattan is a classic cocktail, you know. And now we got a list of contemporary, you know. But a lot of the contemporary cocktails are twists on classics. You know,
Twists of classics,
Rasmussen Fizz, Bucare from New Orleans, Sazerac. You know, those are the classic cocktails, you know.
And so people are starting to drink these again, to discover them again, you think?
Yes. Right now is a lot of, in this business is a lot of education that we do. For example, when we opened Icbm was a lot of that, you know, like what we do in certain way is because we're trying to achieve certain level, and it's an exchange of information between the guest and the bartender.
Okay.
You know, because I consider that the cocktail is a piece of conversation.
Yes.
You know, the spirit is coming from this region, let's say Mexico, you know, from this palenque. It's 4 generations of people doing the same tequila the same way that their ancestors been doing this, you know? And then it's made in this way and only in this region in Mexico, different than this region, because it's a reason for that, you know? And then it's a cultural link between the guests and the country where it's made. And there's a lot of history involved, and it's a lot of passion from the makers of the spirit, and then a lot of passion for the bartender who's creating the cocktail for the guests.
And something that you were telling me is your vision is to try to bring liquors and liqueurs from South America that are not that known in the United States and start introducing them into these classic cocktails.
Yes, I believe when I opened Albert's back in 2015, I remember I opened in September 4, was for San Agustin 450th anniversary.
Yes.
You know, that was the day that I chose to open, you know,
Wow.
for a reason, just to remember and make it something. And I opened as a pop-up bar. What is a pop-up bar? So I say, I want to try this concept, and I say, I'm opening a bar, and to see how it goes. We become very popular. So, but also, I want to just make a statement of what I do. I want to represent the culture where I'm from, and pretty much introducing to Americans. For example, I got spirit from all South America, you know, pisco from Peru and Chile. I got Singani from Bolivia, aguardiente from Colombia,
Cachaca or
tequila,
something.
cachaça from Brazil,
cachaça.
rum from Panama, Venezuela, and all the Caribbean. So, and then how I can blend with the spirit, how I introduce those unknown spirits, you know, to people through cocktails, you know, because and then
Love it.
you're able to blend, but you're not only blending spirit and flavors, you're blending cultures. And it's a way, through a cocktail, you can learn so much about a country. You can learn so much about culture,
Yes.
about geography, you know, and this is important what we do. You know, the cocktail is not only what we do. The cocktail is a reason of the experience. This is what we do in Albert. We don't do cocktails. We provide an experience.
An experience.
And it's what people need to understand of what we do or we are so passionate about it.
Anyone here been to Oddbirds? What's your biggest seller when it comes to cocktails that you tend to sell? What's one of the big ones that tends to go out the door a lot?
The Canario.
The Canario. What is the
Canario stands for canary. Because
a canary.
The good thing about Oddbirds, everything is about birds, you know, and bird watching. And I developed the concept about everything about birds. And then it's bourbon. It's a homemade ginger and turmeric syrup. Lemon, simple, and Angostura bitters.
Oh wow!
And it's very popular. And
You don't have one in your pocket right now?
No.
I have one of those. Now,
I should bring a punch later.
So yeah, that's very that sounds delicious, and I can see why it's so popular. Now, do men and women have a different approach to a cocktail?
Yeah.
Do women tend to order something, a type of liquor or something that's more popular in their drinks, and men tend to order something else?
No, nowadays, used to be where normally women go for cosmopolitan, vodka, things like that. But right now, women are so empowered of what they do that you're gonna free a woman drinking old fashions all night long. You know what I mean? So now you see a lot of women drinking brown liquor, rum, bourbon, and
Yes.
then it's not distinction, right now, and it's the reason that bartender not should be judgmental of what people order, because we're there to provide things,
The old commercial, but you've come a long way, baby. Remember that commercial? But now, what do you see the future for Oddbirds? Oh no, even better question. When you hire a bartender, what are you looking for? Just knowledge, or are you looking for other things from that person?
Yes, actually, it's a good question, because today I have my first coaching class that I open to the public, not for my staff, but it's about the philosophy of what we're looking for. It's not about technicality or how to make cocktails. A lot of people go to apply, I have the bartender license from so-and-so school.
Oh, yes,
But,
from Harvard.
but it's about the attitude, and it's about, are you hospitable? Are you willing to serve others? Are you willing to, be welcoming? Because I would say knowledge come after, because we can provide knowledge, we can provide training, but we can provide a personality, we can provide attitude. Things like you can mold people, but people develop already their personality.
Yes, when they
and
come,
this is
they're
important to be. The first thing in this business is hospitality.
Right.
You need to make people welcome, home. You know what I mean? Now, it's the reason that bartenders take the bar as a stage, because they need to leave their problems at home.
Yes.
And when you are at the bar, you are on stage, you need to be you and be entertaining.
Yeah, because, I grew up where you'd go to a place called Bob's Grill. You'd order a Schlitz and a Johnny Walker Red. It was quiet. Someone might offer you a cigarette or not. And it was a place where you'd kind of contemplate, watch the bubbles in your glass. And now I go into a bar, it's like going into Best Buy. I'm going to buy a television. There are TVs everywhere, every sport, everything. It is so noisy, it is so loud. And they want me to get out of there quick. You feel like you're really spending your money very badly. And what I liked when you opened your first bar, which was that long one down there, it was a bar. It brought me back to what a bar used to be, And you might meet a lady and say, "What's a pretty girl like you doing in a place like this?" But the thing is, it's a place where you kind of, like you say, I get away from my problems. I come here. Bartender is great conversationalist. He makes a great cocktail. I might ask him, surprise me. I like to do that, bartenders. And they ask me, well, what do you like? And they do something special,
Now, one of the successful outbursts is our famous bartender's call. And it's the first cocktail listed in the menu, which say, let the bartender make you something. And then you just tell what flavor, what you don't like, and what are your spirit
right. Or
allergic to something, And we create something, and it's about the garnish, it's about the presentation, it's about the vessel.
Yes, I've seen flowers in your drinks, man. I see all sorts of crazy.
You are open to creativity and giving the opportunity to the bartender to be more creative.
Right.
But also you want to create a connection with the guests,
Yes.
And it's the reason that the guest is there for a reason,
Right.
And then we have enough right now on people attached to their phones all day long. And then if you put another device at the bar to get more distracted.
Another display.
So I think the bar is a good way to create, again, a human connection.
Yes.
It's really important.
Yes.
And the bartender is there for engage. And we understand that. Sometimes people don't want to talk or start a conversation.
Right.
And then we let them alone. We can read people, you know what I mean? But also people want there to talk or something, and the bartender is pretty much like a priest, they're never gonna say something, you can't tell me, and everything stays there with the bartender. A lot of He's a therapist.
He's everything, man. Yeah, he's a psychologist, he's a therapist, he's a financial advisor. It goes on and on and on, a sports expert.
And this is funny because if you think about it, bartender is just so important part of this society. You're happy, you go to a bar. You're sad, you go to a bar. You get divorced, you go to a bar. And you get married, you go to a bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the bar thing. Well, like the pubs in England, in Ireland.
And everything in moderation as well.
Yes,
everything in moderation, be responsible and things like that. But I think so. Enjoying a good cocktail responsibly is really harmless.
Something that impressed me of your ambition was that you started this film. It takes you around the world. And what this film does, it goes to all the great bars in the world. Buenos Aires, Santiago, Chile, La Floridita in Cuba. And it's going back to the old bartenders, interviewing them, talking about the techniques, the philosophy behind bartending. And now you're at the end of this film in Cuba. I think you're filming the last parts of it.
Actually, the film is done already.
It's
I
finished.
conceived this idea in 2010.
Wow.
Because I want to trace back to who started the whole thing, you know? In the United States, we have what we call the father of the cocktail, which is called Jerry Thomas. He born in 1830 in New York, you know? And he's known today as the father of the cocktail in the United States.
Right.
But I say, okay, if America had the father of the cocktail, who is the father on the other countries? You
In
know?
Madrid, who's the father in Argentina?
Cuba, you know? And Cuba was fun because Cuba, and everything had to be with prohibition. Between 1920 and 1933, United States alcohol was banned. And then all these amazing bartenders that by then was in America was considered equal as a doctor. They had to flew the country, and then they went to the Caribbean, Cuba, Spain, Argentina, Italy, and then they start creating this movement, and people get educated about it. So in 1924, 1925, in Cuba, started the Cantineros Association. It's like the Bartender Association.
Right.
In the island, where they create these 10 rules about cantinero and school, then did this career as a serious business.
Yeah.
And then I start tracing, okay, Cuba, then what? Spain, Argentina, Venezuela, Panama, and we're from 5 countries.
Wow.
In the United States, we're from San Agustin, of course, with the help of San Agustin Distillery, and Philip McDaniel is a great supporter of the project.
He was here last week.
Oh yeah, awesome, great guy, great mentor as well. And then New Orleans, because New Orleans had to do a lot with the history of cocktails in America and in Hispanic America as well. And Miami, Calle Ocho, you know, Julio Cabrera, a good friend of mine, which is was awarded as the best American bartender of the year.
Wow.
In Tell of the Cocktail last year. He was in GQ magazine, all that kind. He's like authentic cantinero. So what is a cantinero? You know, a cantinero is the Spanish word for bartender, you know? And then back in the day, like, until today, the real cantineros don't shave, you know, visual tattoos, everything grooming, things like that.
Yes.
Bow ties, vests, and then they had this unique style. Ernest Hemingway used to go to La Floridita in Cuba, and there's still a statue in La Floridita because he used to drink daiquiris, and they have a cocktail after named Papa Doble.
Papa Doble,
Yeah.
double father.
Yeah, and then all the history is very fascinating, and I start tracing the most important figures on the cocktail making on Cuba, Spain,
Argentina,
and Venezuela. Actually, in Venezuela, it's very funny. I find the only guy alive of this generation is 86-year-old Joaquin Grau in Alicante, Spain. We filmed in his house. He was the bartender for Nelson Rockefeller.
Oh, wow.
So Nelson Rockefeller used to have a foundation that they used to pretty much incentivize the farmers in South America. And he all stayed in this hotel in Venezuela, Hotel Tamanaco. They have a beautiful bar with Joaquin Grau was his bartender.
Oh, wow.
Because there was, back in the days, the Rockefeller was concerned about the raising of the left, the Communist Party on South America. And then they started investing on giving equipment to the farmers, creating malls, that way people know that having money is good, things like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's really cool when you have those big people, or you got Pedro Chicote in Madrid, a famous bar in Madrid called Museo Chicote today. He's the guy that used to, you know, tend to Ava Gardner, for example.
Oh, wow.
You know, that when he used to go to Madrid, it was a very big socialite movement there.
And bartenders were almost like your barber. Something very personal. You
Yes.
look for him.
Yep.
He's the one who's going to shave me. He's the one who's going to my hair. He's the one who's going to make my cocktail.
It's a great connection between a bartender and a guest.
We've run out of time. I can have you here all night. I could just get a buzz on what we're talking about. It's fascinating. I will bring you back at some time. I thank you so much, Cesar.
No, thank you for having me.
And I thank you for bringing something so special and so magnificent. I love cocktails.
Thank you very much.
my friend. And we'll be back with our next guest after these messages. Eso es tuyo.
It's blowing this way like a new hurricane, and it's growing. I'm feeling a change.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with Tony Vecchio, and Tony is the executive director of the Jacksonville Zoo Gardens. And when I had my conversation with Tony, wow, it was a major education, because I still had lots of thoughts of the old zoos that I remember having problems, and we'll talk about that. So Tony, where are you originally from?
Born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh. Okay.
And you know, if you don't mind, I need to correct you. When we talked recently, I was the executive director of the zoo. The board recently changed the bylaws, and I am now the president. So if you would address me as Mr. President, I would.
Okay.
I would appreciate
the
that.
President. Okay.
President of the zoo. What a job.
All right. President of the zoo. And now, you were telling me that when you were young, you just had this love thing for animals. You really liked them. And one of your first jobs as a kid was working in a zoo, wasn't it? Yeah. How old were you then?
14 years old.
14 years old.
Had to get a special dispensation from the doctor. I had a letter that said it was okay for me to work.
And so, what did you do at that time? Zoos must have been different at that time. What was your job as a 14-year-old in a zoo?
Well, I started out in food service. It's funny, people ask me now, did you start at the bottom as a zookeeper? Well, I aspired to be a zookeeper. I started boxing popcorn and making snow cones, and had to work my way up to the children's zoo, which really is the bottom.
The children's zoo.
The bottom rung of zookeeping, yes. But I did have the best job in the world when I look back over my many years. In the children's zoo, I was a puppy keeper.
A puppy keeper?
Yeah, the local shelter would bring puppies to the zoo, and in those days, people could just come in, fill out a form, and take a puppy home.
Oh, wow.
And so the shelter would bring, we had a wishing well in the children's zoo, and they would bring a load of puppies, put them in the well. My job was to sit there and supervise puppies. Does it get better than that?
Oh, wow.
It's been all downhill since then.
You also said you had a gig with ducks?
Oh, yeah. Well, as you said, zoos were very different in those days. I worked with the kissing bunnies, the dancing chickens, and the piano-playing ducks. They were wonderful. You put a quarter in the little slot, and the duck would come out from behind stage. Not only did he play the piano, but he would walk over and he'd turn the light on that sat on top of the piano, and then he would play the piano. A little bit of food would come out, he'd eat it, and go off stage again. It was a different era in the zoo world.
Yes. Now zoos, they started taking, a lot of zoos started taking a sort of a dive. I mean, a lot of zoos started getting in trouble. What were some of the problems zoos were having?
Well, I think for many, many years, probably decades, zoos were pretty much municipal agencies. They were funded by the city. And back in the late 50s, the 60s, 70s, cities started to struggle. And before you're going to cut the fire department and the police force, you're looking for areas to cut. And they started cutting money for the zoos. And zoos were really in bad shape in the 60s. I started in 1969.
You started in 1969? What was your first zoo that you went to?
It's the Pittsburgh Zoo now. It was called the Highland Park Zoo in Pittsburgh in those days.
And was that zoo in trouble when you went there?
If you walked around that zoo by today's standards, how much we care about animals and the welfare of animals, yeah, you would have been very disturbed. The zoo was, it was not a pleasant place. It was animals in cages and small spaces, and it was not a good time.
It wasn't good for them. And so what did you do to start changing that whole philosophy of these bad zoos into something better?
Well, way above my pay grade, but zoos started to develop public-private partnerships. So cities would still help out the zoo to some degree, but a group of citizens who really cared about the community would come together and create a 501c3 to manage the zoo. And it really improved the way zoos are operating. And that's when zoos switched from being places where you just went for a day of entertainment to conservation organizations.
Okay.
We now are we're very aggressive, very proud of the fact that we are involved in conservation. So at one point, zoos were consumers of animals for a long, long time, but starting in the late 70s, zoos became producers of animals. We work with endangered species and we save them.
And you work all over the world?
We have conservation projects going on in Africa, South America, Central America, Asia, as well as lots and lots of stuff right here in Florida.
And your zoo here also rescues manatees.
Yeah, that is our specialty. We
Now,
have
now, manatees used to go in because they got hit by boats or the water was cold. Why are they coming in now?
oh, this is the saddest year maybe in my whole career when it comes to animal welfare. We have seen more manatees that are starving than ever before. The seagrass is dying.
Any reason why?
Lots of theories. Probably chemical runoff from agriculture is the main culprit. Septic tanks overflowing into the water. The water pollution, particularly in the Indian River Lagoon part of the state, is in really bad shape. And the seagrass beds have died, and we've seen manatees that are probably 20 to 30% of what they should weigh.
Wow.
And it's been very sad.
So you come in, feed them, take care of whatever problems they might have.
Yeah, we don't actually have a manatee exhibit at the zoo. We have a critical care center.
Right.
We do let people see the manatees if the manatees are accepting visitors that day, but the priority is to take care of the manatees. So we bring them in, the vets evaluate them. If it's a boat strike, they patch them up, and
Right.
we just let them heal. If it's cold stress, it takes a while to get them back in shape.
Get 'em
But
warm.
these emaciated manatees, it's taken months and months to get them back in shape, because when they get too far gone, their organs start to shut down. And
Right.
it's not just a matter of giving them more food, it's really nursing them back to health.
Well, it's almost when the Americans went in concentration camps, and people were so, you just couldn't give them food, you'd kill them.
Yeah.
You had to start with water really, really slow.
We have, recently we've had manatees that have shut down so badly they won't eat. The vets have to intubate them.
Oh, wow.
And feed them that way. It's
Wow.
very sad. A
Yeah.
lot of success stories. We've released 27 manatees now back into the wild that have
Fantastic.
come through our critical care center. So it's
Wow.
very exciting
Uh-huh.
when you can put animals back.
Yes.
And like I said, in the old days, zoos used to take animals out of
Yeah.
the wild. Now we put them back, which is kind of a super rewarding thing
Interesting.
for someone.
What other zoos have you worked in the country?
Well, I started at Pittsburgh. When I was in graduate school, I was in Columbia, South Carolina at USC. I worked at that zoo full time. And then I went to Zoo Atlanta.
Oh, wow. That zoo was in really bad shape when you came there.
Yeah. You notice I spent a lot of time at bad zoos.
Uh-huh.
Zoo Atlanta was named one of the 10 worst zoos in the country, which is
Wow.
not good for the zoo, but it was great for my career. They hired a visionary new zoo director who was a Georgia Tech professor of animal psychology.
Dr. Maple was
Dr.
his name?
Terry Maple. He came in and pretty much cleaned house and brought in a whole new staff. I was part of that new staff. So I got to work at a terrible zoo, which is a good education, but also I got to see what it takes to make a great zoo. And we really turned that zoo around.
It's one of the best now in the country.
Yeah, it is a very, very good zoo. And unfortunately, when you're part of that experience, you start getting calls from headhunters. Mr. Vecchio, we'd love for you to come to work at our zoo. And I'd say, tell me about it. And they'd say, well, it's a terrible zoo. And well, how appealing is that?
Oh, boy.
But yeah, I went to a very struggling zoo in Providence, Rhode Island after that, and spent 10 years there and put together a really good team. And we turned that zoo around. It became one of the best small zoos in the country. And
Now, you tell a funny story how they got you to this zoo from that zoo. So what,
Well-
they called you? What happened?
well, a little embarrassing now, but at that time I was in Oregon. I had moved on to Oregon, was the director there. I got a call from the director here who I had known for years, and he invited me to come. He said, I'm moving on to Omaha, and the board has asked me to find a director. Would you come interview here? I think you'd like it. And I said, no, thank you. And he said, why not? I know you're an East Coast guy and all that. And I said, yeah, but I've seen your zoo, and I don't want to do any more turnarounds. And he's on the other end of the phone. I couldn't see him, but I could feel it. I could feel the icy cold hatred there. And he finally said, turnaround? What do you mean turnaround? And I said, well, Dennis, I got to be honest with you. I saw your zoo, and it's in pretty bad shape. I just don't want to go through that again. And he said, Tony, when did you see my zoo? And I said, it was 1990, I think. And he said, you owe it to yourself to come back here and interview and just spend some time here. And he talked me into coming back for an interview. And this was in 2008.
Huh.
So not that...
Had it done a turnaround from the time you were there?
Gosh, I could not find a single place in the Jacksonville Zoo Gardens that I recognized from 1990. The
Wow.
entire zoo had turned around.
Wow.
And so a whole new challenge for me, someone who had built a career going to terrible zoos. This was a very good zoo that wanted to be better. And I
Okay.
thought, well, that's a different kind of challenge.
Right.
And I was excited about the opportunity to come here and work at quite frankly, a really good zoo.
Now, why is it called Zoo and Gardens?
Well, in 2002, the zoo opened the first botanical garden in the zoo.
Okay.
And a lot of people in the community, Northeast Florida, really wanted to see a good botanical garden in Northeast Florida. A lot of folks from this community, from Jacksonville, from Amelia Island, even South Georgia, they wanted to see North Florida have a good botanical garden. They decided the zoo was the right spot for it.
All right.
So we've opened up a series of gardens now. One of the things I love about this zoo, I've been to other zoos that are zoos and gardens, and usually you have a zoo and then a garden, and they're in the same organization, but they're separate entities.
Okay.
Our zoo has gardens, we call them pocket gardens. They're scattered throughout the zoo.
That's
so as
cool.
you're enjoying your zoo experience, you're experiencing the gardens at the same time.
So they could be anywhere.
Yeah, and it really kind of impacts the look and feel of your experience when you go to the zoo.
Right, right, right. Now you guys also have like a, excuse me, a tiger section or something?
It's called Land of the Tiger.
Land of the Tiger.
It won the Zoo Association has we have 250 members, and there's a conference every year, and they give out an award for the best zoo exhibit in the country, and our last two major projects have won that award. Land of the Tiger, Range of the Jaguar many years ago won that award, and now 6 years ago the Land of the Tiger won it, and our most recent exhibit, the African Forest, won it also. Land of the Tiger was really special. We're one of the only zoos in the country that has an animal wellness department.
Okay.
We have a full-time staff dedicated to studying the animals and figuring out ways to make life better for animals, not just at our zoo, but everywhere.
So they're happy.
Yeah, happy animals.
Like
Yes,
your dog.
yes.
They have emotions, yeah?
Yeah, it used to be bad to say that. You looked dopey if you said animals had emotion. I always thought, does anyone have a dog and not realize animals have emotion?
Right,
Of course
right,
they have
yeah.
emotion. And we want our animals to be happy. But our animal wellness department had a lot of input into the design of the tiger exhibit.
There was something you did for the cheetahs to entertain them. What was
Well,
that?
We find ways to entertain all the animals. There are lots of different things. Cheetahs are especially interesting because I think every kid knows they're the fastest land animal. So when we're looking at what we call enrichment, we look for ways to make life better for the animals. The cheetahs are one that really want to chase things. So by designing things that the animals will chase is really enriching for the animals that like to run. Tigers are a little different. With the tiger exhibit, the thing that was so innovative with that exhibit is, in addition to having two very large, naturalistic, beautiful exhibits, we built a trail system. That's a 1/4 mile long trail that the tigers can leave their exhibit, go out walking over the visitors' heads and behind other exhibits, and they can sit in one spot and watch the Asian pigs, which the pigs don't appreciate.
I see two
but,
tigers say, look at the pigs, look at the pigs, look what they're doing, you know.
We call that enrichment for the tigers. The pigs, not so much.
So they're not in animals aren't in cages anymore. They have their habitats then.
Well, we call them habitats. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
open air.
Wow.
And that's one of the big changes that's happened in decades over the zoos. The animals have a lot more space. But I learned a lesson the hard way when I first went to the zoo in Rhode Island and inherited these terrible exhibits. We had sea lions in a very small exhibit, and they were swimming in a circle. And I made it my first project. We raised $2 million. We built a new sea lion exhibit that was 6 times the size of the old exhibit. And we put the sea lions in this new big exhibit, and they started swimming in bigger circles. And I realized space is important to animals, but it's really the quality of the exhibit. You have to give them things to do. You have to challenge their thinking.
Yes.
Give them activities to do throughout the day.
Yeah.
So that's the whole new nature of zoo exhibit
Right.
design.
I'm a New York City kid, so I remember the Bronx Zoo. That's where we would go, you know, and they'd have like these little trolleys take you at that time. And I remember they opened, I was a teenager, they had the nocturnal animal exhibit where you went into this darkness. You had to wait for your eyes to, and there was a lot of blue light, and you could see these bats and these snakes and these frogs that all lived in the darkness.
That was my favorite exhibit at the Bronx Zoo.
Really?
People ask me what the best zoo in the country is, and I have to tell them, Jacksonville Zoo Gardens certainly, and St. Augustine Alligator Farm's right up there too. But after that, then the Bronx Zoo is probably the
They say
best.
San Diego has a good zoo also.
San Diego says they have a good zoo.
And Berlin,
They
I
spend
heard
a lot
also
of money
in
telling
Germany.
people they have a good zoo. But, and they do. It's a good zoo.
Is there any animal that you'd like to bring to the zoo that you don't have now?
Yeah, I'm big on dogs. And Yeah, you can laugh, but you know what? What we try to do, and you mentioned cell phones before. You see people, Cesar mentioned other people are focused on the wrong things. They're looking at their cell phone. I think one of the biggest threats to wildlife in the world right now is we have an entire generation of kids growing up that have no connection with nature. None. Their connection is with electronics.
Right, digital.
And that's one of our focuses at the zoo. We want to break that. We want to show kids how wonderful the world is. But you can't let kids play with a tiger. They can see them. Well, you could, but that's a whole 20 years in jail.
Right.
But dogs, you can play with a dog. And
Right.
what a great first connection for kids. So it's weird, I know. But I would love to see a dog exhibit at this.
Wow,
To
wow.
really emphasize that connecting people.
Now you organize trips to Africa for people to actually go out there and experience Africa and seeing the animals in their habitat.
Yeah.
And how does those whole expeditions go?
Oh, it's life-changing for people.
Really?
Well, yeah, seeing animals in the wild is just special. Now, for me, it's a little. I'm worried. I'm worried about the future of the natural world, because when I go and I spend time talking to the rangers, I realize the parks in Africa now, they're zoos. They're managing the animals the same way we do. We talk about. They moved lions from one park to another in Africa now because of the genetic diversity. Same thing we do in this country with our zoos. Zoos all work cooperatively, and the world is becoming managed, and wildlife and wild places is becoming managed. But for somebody just visiting as a tourist, seeing a herd of elephants with all ages and babies and 100 elephants, something we could never do in the zoo, it's life-changing. It's really
Yeah, you
special.
said there's a place where they rescue baby elephants when poachers kill their mothers.
Yeah, I
and
always
people
stop
can
there.
and people can interact with them, and they're very playful, aren't they?
Again,
Almost like
I have an ulterior motive when we go to Africa. One, I want people to have a great time. I want them to connect to nature, but I want them to connect in a way that makes them care about conservation. And so what we do is, because I love that elephant orphanage, you can adopt an elephant there. So we don't tell the people until a day or two before the trip leaves that we have adopted an elephant for them. So when we go to this orphanage, they meet their baby elephant for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And after that, they become hooked.
They're suckers.
They
That's
follow that
great.
elephant for the rest of its life.
That's great. I'm so glad that you are the president of the Jacksonville Zoo.
Mr. President.
And we've run out of time. I could talk to you all day, but thank you for, all your love for these creatures and what you're doing and helping educate us. Because I guess it starts with our education, that we can appreciate something that probably no one's ever told us why this flower is the way it is. And, it starts that whole appreciation.
Well, thank
So
you.
thank
I appreciate
you.
this
Thank you, Tony.
opportunity. I have a great idea for you. You should take your show on the road, and we should film an episode of your show in Africa the next time.
Oh, I'd love that.
right.
I'd love that.
You got a deal.
And have a giraffe walk right through the middle of the show. Perfect. And knock my lights down. I don't mind. I don't mind. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
We'll have an intermission now. You can go grab another glass of wine or beer or whatever your beverage is, and we shall come back with our last guest and a slider. Thank you. Another hand for Tony.
It's coming, can you feel it? It's coming, can you feel it? It's coming, I can feel it. It's coming, I can feel it. Seems that I change. Seems that I change. You can't stop it now. Here come the new, here come the loud.
welcoming our next guest.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with one of my favorite people, Lenny Foster. Lenny Foster. You have a lot of fans. When I had you in season 3, I think all we had was a cousin clapping in the third row.
Right.
And now look at this.
I'm
look
still
at this.
signing autographs.
I'm here with Lenny because Lenny just opened an exhibition. It's called Where We Stand. It is at the administration building of St. Johns County. That building's open from 9 to 5, I
Right.
believe.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, so you'd have. I tell you what, when you see this exhibition, which tells the history, sometimes very sad, of St. Augustine, and its struggle with civil rights, it is based around shoes. You see a lot of shoes through all the photos. The shoes all tell a story, and that's what's impactful as you read the story of those shoes in that place with whatever props are around it. It could be a suitcase, it could be flowers, it could be a microphone. I fell in love with the picture in the back, which Lenny's holding for me.
Debbie Moore.
Debbie Moore. And it is those types of exhibitions that you go to, and they have a certain soul impact on you. You don't leave the same as you come in. So if you love history and you love St. Augustine, it's a must-see. If you have a shoe fetish, it's also wonderful.
Yes.
But yeah, there's shoes everywhere. But tell us a little bit about this exhibition.
Well, it started just over 4 years ago. I moved in to an apartment at 22 MLK. And I knew nothing of St. Augustine's history, really, African American history, civil rights history. I was familiar with the Fountain of Youth. But that was about it. So I rented this apartment on MLK, and in the evenings I would ride my bike through the neighborhood, and I discovered the Lincolnville Museum and Cultural Center, the Accord Freedom Trail Museum, and the Accord Freedom Trail stops. And I called it my night school. You know, after dinner I'd ride around and I would stop at these stops and read the history of St. Augustine, who has stayed in the house, who lived in the house, who visited the house, what happened there. And I discovered this rich, deep, and vast history that I knew nothing about. I was blown away over the fact that on the street that I lived, Dr. King had visited a few times and spoke, Andrew Young, Jackie Robinson, Ralph Abernathy, and also the people that lived here, the unsung heroes of the civil rights movement. Brave people put their lives on the line.
Houses burned, people shot through the windows.
Absolutely. And they're wonderful, fun stories too. I mean, Debbie Moore, a jazz singer, Ray Charles, who used to sneak over to a club over here, with help, of course, and play piano. And his practice piano was downstairs. So I learned about in sports heroes. Willie Gallimore was here.
Incredible.
Various stories, yes.
Yes. So we ran out of time, but I brought him in to make you aware. Yes, your slider. Oh. So what you call it?
I've been called worse.
Yes, and so really, if you don't, it's there to April 22nd.
Yes, and it's very important. I wanted to incorporate both history and art and make it an easy, accessible way to learn history and find out these stories. And people in St. Augustine, a lot of people know this history, and I've discovered since I've been working on this project, a lot of people here that don't. So it's my opportunity to share my gifts and my talents and make these stories available. Yes,
it's a beautiful. He's a wonderful photographer, number one, and this whole theme is just so. It's just off the wall, man. It's really, really good. So it's there to April 22nd. Find a time to go there and look at it. It will, you'll be impressed. And you'll leave with a smile on your face because you'll leave more knowledge. Yes, and you have catalogs.
We have a few exhibition catalogs up front here. First come, first serve. Ladies first.
And yes. So give him a hand and check out his exhibit, everybody.
Thank you, Dennis.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Another thing I needed to say is when we had Anthony Vecchio here, there's memberships that you can get for the zoo, which are very inexpensive and allows you to go to zoo every day if you want to go. It's really, really a great way to support the zoo, and it's always there when you have visitors and people come because it's a beautiful place to go to. Just want to bring that up, okay? And I am here with, let's see, Paul Sirmons? Sirmons. Is it French?
I have no idea.
Okay. To me, it's either could be French
South
or
Georgian is what it is.
really,
and then
or Dutch.
Floridian for
It
the
sounds
last
like it'd
few
be the
generations.
French or Dutch. Yeah. So I have Paul here. He is a man behind the camera in many ways. He started with the assistant director of the Waltons. Oh, yeah.
Somebody's over 60.
Yeah. If you know other shows like Falcon Crest, Quantum Leap, his IMDb is like reading a menu in a restaurant. There's so many things as producer, director, even scripts. Amazing career in that whole world of film, television, and you know, the big screen in the theater. So, Paul, where are you originally from?
Originally from St. Petersburg, Florida.
Right.
Born and raised in Florida. My dad was born and raised in Florida. So
Yeah.
we're generational Floridians.
And if you see this face and it looks familiar, it's because Paul was head of the Florida Film Commission during the Jeb Bush administration.
When Jeb was our governor, yeah.
Yes, when Jeb was the
Film
man
Commission.
behind the films and everything that was going in that industry in Florida had to go through his office. But the reason he was in that position is because he had an incredible career in film. How did you get involved in film at all as a young man?
Well, at first I have to apologize to Lenny for my shoes. They're just not good enough. But I got into it through basically being bad at algebra. I was in an algebra class in junior college, and I was not doing well at it, and it was a night course. And so I couldn't tell my parents I was dropping the class. So I would go as if I'm going to class, and I would pass the school, and there was a drive-in movie just beyond. So I'd pull in the drive-in movie, and they'd be showing B-rated features, and I would watch these movies. I watched the same movie like 5 times in a row, you know, over a week or two period. And I started to see how movies were put together, and it fascinated me. So I have algebra to thank for that. But then I got my degree in broadcasting at the University of Florida.
Right.
While I was there was when I was introduced to St. Augustine. I used to come over here for the beach. At that time, you could just drive and park there all night.
Sleep in your car.
Sleep in my car. I had like a mattress in the back of a station wagon. It might as well have been a $100,000 RV. It was wonderful. But and would listen to the great music they had then. I remember Gamble Rogers. Anybody remember Gamble? Your music, yeah. Gamble was, I would follow him wherever he went. It was great.
We had the gentleman who wrote his autobiography in the last season.
Really?
Yeah, and we brought some of the band members that played with Gamble to play on the show. It was a great show.
That's great. I have to find that one and watch
That
it.
was really good.
And Gene Scoggins was a buddy. He booked for the Beef and Bottle Lounge over in Entertainment Act. In Gainesville, but he lived over here, and he was involved in the music scene over here. So I just got very involved in that. But at college, I got my degree in broadcasting. I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to be in the visual media, you know, and I wanted to tell stories. And the film industry in 1976 really wasn't that big in Florida.
And you weren't interested in being an actor.
Not at all.
You wanted to produce the product.
Probably they're already learning that right now. But I wanted to, I wanted to tell stories.
Okay.
And I could either go to New York or LA.
Right.
It doesn't snow in LA. So
Florida
I know
kid.
you're a New York guy, so you're like, I'm a wimpy Floridian. That cold stuff
LA.
bothers me.
And
So I went
how
to
was the
LA.
culture shock of coming from Florida to LA?
It was really amazing because I remember when I went for job interviews, I would dress like this, a coat and tie, and I'd go sitting there. Even back then, everybody else in the room that were from LA, they were in like T-shirts and cutoffs and stuff. And I'm like, they want to get a job? And they you know, they didn't care really, you know. And so it was really easy to get jobs out there because they were looking for people that were hungry and wanted and motivated and wanted
serious, and even in the way they dressed, you could tell that they were serious about what they wanted.
My first job, I was a secretary, you know, in the property department at CBS Studio Center. But it was on the film lot where they did the Mary Tyler Moore Show and Rhoda and Gilligan's Island and all these old
golden age, man.
Yeah. So, and I got to network with all the people, and that one job led to almost all the jobs that came after that as an assistant director. Literally a 20-year career doing that.
And what was your first directing job at what capacity?
Well, my first assistant director job was a pilot for Mary Tyler Moore Productions called Every Stray Dog and Kid. And if you ever want to run a show where everything can and will go wrong, have kids and dogs involved in it, you know? But it came out good enough that they gave me the Waltons after that.
Oh, wow.
Which was a Lorimar show.
Yes.
So it was it was a fun time to
and from there you went to what other projects?
I moved up to a first assistant director on Falcon Crest and did that for 3 years. Did just a lot of one-hour TV series, like you said, Quantum Leap, Sequest, Our House, the Cape TV. It came back to Florida when they opened the studios.
Disney.
First show at Disney I roll camera on as an assistant director, as the first AD, was Superboy.
Superboy, I remember that.
Yeah, they weren't all good shows I did, okay. And then I went to Universal and did the new Leave It to Beaver, which was the original Leave It to Beaver cast grown up with kids of their own. You know? And it was a blast. It was a blast.
I bet.
And they were great people.
Wally, help me, Wally.
And then I just did shows up until I did a show in Miami called Sins of the City that was, to me, just trashy. Just didn't like it. You know, AMC. Sorry, whoever producer is out there hearing that, but I wanted to decided I wanted to make a show that my kids could watch.
Okay.
You know, and you know, I have 4 boys now in our family. You know, and so they were young. I wanted to make something that was a family thing.
Right.
You know, kind of old Disney. And so I partnered up with Gary Rogers out of the Land. We optioned a Florida book, Gail Radley's book, a writer in DeLand and a teacher at Stetson, and we optioned it, and he wrote the screenplay because he wanted to be a writer. I wanted to direct, I directed it. And that movie was a little film called The 1st of May, which...
The 1st of May.
The 1st of May.
Mickey Rooney's in that?
Mickey Rooney.
Joe DiMaggio, I think.
Charles Nelson Riley. Julie Harris stars in it, the Broadway actress. And Joe DiMaggio's in it, the baseball player.
1st of May.
And I'm directing it. It was incredible. It was a $500,000 movie, by the way. Little tiny movie.
Yeah, compared to that, it is.
Yeah,
200,
but it won 13 Film Festival awards. But it was about a foster child who befriends an old lady in a retirement home. They run away together, join the circus. We use the Clyde Beatty Cobra, the circus. That becomes a family to them. And then in the end, they're adopted into a real family, both of them. Okay, I just gave you the spoiler ending, sorry. But at 2 of the film festivals, we had couples come up that said they had considered adopting a child, and after watching the movie, they had decided to do it. Thank you. That wasn't why we made the movie. We just wanted to make an entertaining family movie. But that's when God kind of hit me in the heart and went, see the power of what you've spent 20 years playing around at, you know? And I started paying attention to what I was making. And from that point on, I didn't go back to being an assistant director. I became a producer because I realized I was not a great director. I'm a journeyman director. But I felt like I'm a really good producer. And I look for
bring the right
great
people,
directors,
yes,
and then help build the package around them, you know, or the great.
You don't
script.
cook, but you bring the great ingredients, the freshest, nicest ingredients.
That's it.
That makes the meal.
I
can't make the meal.
The cocktail, but I can get all the bottles.
And you know how to think. Now you're president of ICVM.
Yes.
Which is a Christian-based movies. Well, making movies that have a
It's a 50-year-old organization.
Right.
This year we'll open the entries for the ICVM Crown Awards, which will be the 50th
Right.
that they've done that every year. It honors the best in independent Christian cinema.
Right.
We have a storytellers conference we do every year for 4 days. It will be in November in Orlando, Florida.
Right.
So if there are any Christian filmmakers watching, get a hold of me, and
Yeah.
you need to be a part of that.
Now, you're very involved with the Native Americans.
Yes.
In the sense that you help them, once again, as a great producer, help them tell the stories, the Chickasaw.
The Chickasaw Nation, yes, in
Nation.
Oklahoma.
In
I
Oklahoma.
had produced, I line produced a movie in Oklahoma called Home Run. It was a Christian movie about a baseball player that has to go through Celebrate Recovery, an addiction film. And they had liked that, and they had heard good things about me as a producer, and they called me in Florida and asked me if I would be interested in producing a movie about their storyteller, Teata. But they wanted to come meet me, and they wanted me to come out there and see, and they did. They came.
And in a synopsis, who was Teata?
Teata was Koryanka Kilcher. Oh, you mean in the story?
The story, yes.
Teata was a young Chickasaw girl who wanted to do more with her life.
This is a true story.
True story. She became the storyteller for not only the Chickasaw Nation, but she was the first, I believe, the first Native American at the Oklahoma School for Women. She was the first Native American woman at Carnegie Institute School of Drama, and she made it on Broadway as a Broadway actress, which was her dream, she thought. But when she got there, she had seen so much of how she was treated, you know, along the way, both as a Native American storyteller and as a woman, that she decided her people needed her, and so she gave up Broadway to become the storyteller for not only the Chickasaws, but all the other tribes came to her and said, "We want you to tell our story." You know, and
Beautiful.
so, which is a big deal, because you can't tell another tribe's stories
Right. unless
they ask you to. You can't wear their outfits unless they ask you to.
Right.
We white people screw that up.
Etiquette, please,
Yes,
etiquette here.
But it's a lovely film. It's on Netflix right now.
Yeah, you can see it on Netflix. And then you had the other one, which was great, Montfort.
Montfort, the Chickasaw rancher. Yeah.
That's also a true story.
Chickasaw.
It's a good Western, man.
Yeah, it's a Western, and what's exciting about that film, it stars Tommy Flanagan, Dermot Mulroney. You know, it's got a good cast in it. And we shot part of that movie. It was shot in Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma story. We shot part of that movie in St. Augustine, Florida. Why? Because in 1877, 70 Indians were arrested in Oklahoma. Without a trial, they were put on freight cars and shipped
Here.
to the fort that still stands in downtown St. Augustine. You know, it was called Fort Marion at that time.
Yes.
And they were in prison there. And Lieutenant Pratt was in charge of them. You know, he had come from Oklahoma with them. Lieutenant Pratt would very famously later go on to Pennsylvania and start the Carnegie School for Indian Children. If you're familiar with that, Jim Thorpe, the greatest athlete ever,
Came out of there.
Came out of that school. But you know, he was all about in his heart, he was trying to help the Native Americans assimilate, learn English, that sort of thing. But anyway, the hero of our story, who was none of these Indians were Chickasaw, by the way, that were imprisoned here. The hero of our story, who was Chickasaw, for reasons we don't really know, left Oklahoma for the first time in his life, went all the way to St. Augustine, Florida, to try to get these 70 Indians out, released. So we're pretty sure one of them was a good friend of his, and that was how we motivated through the movie. You know, and shortly after he left, they were released. So he did do some good here. But the Chickasaw, we were going to shoot the whole movie in Oklahoma for, you know, it's for cost's sake.
Budget.
But I explained to them that we don't have a Spanish fort in Oklahoma. All the forts there are wooden, and you know, those stick forts.
Right.
And I said, but the fort that it actually happened in is still in St. Augustine.
Right.
And I said, can we bring the movie down there and shoot inside? And they were like, we'd like to look at it. So they flew
Oh, wow.
down, we scouted it. It was like a religious experience for them.
Wow.
There's a famous picture of a group of the Indians sitting on the steps inside the fort. You've seen it, it's in the paper every so often, it's at the fort. They walk in and they had seen that picture, and you turn and there are the steps, and you can almost see them sitting on it today.
Right.
And they just turned to me and said, yeah, we'll come here.
Right.
What helped us was we used 50 Valencia students on the film, took them to Oklahoma to work on the movie with a professional crew. You know, these are Valencia Film School students, and they all got credit on the movie, and it's a great
It worked
program.
really well.
And so we took their trucks with us too to use some of their equipment.
Right.
So their trucks coming back just came through St. Augustine. We shot here for 3 days at the fort, packed up, and continued on to
You
Valencia.
guys left some serious money in this town.
A few $100,000. I know Marty Lewis was the film commissioner.
May he
Miss
rest
him.
in peace. Yeah, he
rest-
was going to be on this show, and he passed away
Oh,
a couple of weeks ago.
he
He loved you to death.
he was
He's
a
the one who
great-
said.
he's the one that set us
Yeah,
up.
yeah, because I saw the Mumford movie that was filmed here, and I said, that'd be a great person to talk to. And when I said, hey, do you know the guy who's behind? Of course I do, Jorge. It's Paul Sirmons. This is his number. Yeah, you're right. He'd be great. And we went to talk for, I think, half an hour. We were there for 2.5 hours or something.
Yeah.
That's
That's a
it was
Sirmons
great.
thing, by the way.
Yeah. But it was, yeah, may he rest in peace. And we ran out of time.
And his
So-
wife, by the way, Diane Marno, great makeup artist, has done
She did,
every show.
yes.
You need her
Yeah.
on here if you
Yeah,
can
one
talk her
day.
into getting in front of a camera.
Yeah, I know. Well, I had Marty's pre-interview. I forced him to have the pre-interview. And he did an hour and a half with me. And I went to his little memorial service, and in her hand, I put the flash drive of that conversation of him talking about his life. So she could just put it in and listen to Marty. Said, I was born in Texas, and my name is not the real name on the birth certificate. And he starts telling his story. She was in tears, but she was just, we were both lucky that he did the pre-interview, and I had it, and I saved it, and then gave it to her in the memorial. So she still has Marty's last recollection of talking about his life and how he met her and everything.
And
So-
there's a whole pool of filmmakers in
Yeah.
St. Augustine. I found
love them.
Carter Lord's in the back there. He's another one. There's a
Carter.
lot of
He's the man who
people.
moves the couch for us. He's the big man.
He does a
Yeah.
lot more than that.
Yeah.
He was part of the 1st of May, that film we talked about. It's probably the one guy applauding in the
So
back.
they're good friends. It's a small world. Well, I thank you again, Paul. I'll bring you
thank
again
you.
some other time. God bless you.
God
You're
bless
doing
you
great
too.
work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with Beau and the Burners.
Now we end our show with only the best, Beau and the Burners.
Yes, amazing, amazing. That ends our show. I want to thank you. You know, putting this show together is like climbing Mount Everest, but you're the wind behind my back, my friends. I thank you, I thank you. We learned so much, celebrated our community, had a great time. Have a safe drive home. I love you, and I'll see you next Tuesday with another amazing show.